common tools and techniques in CTFs for high school teachers. My name is Jonathan Bartles. I'm a curriculum development specialist at cyber.org. With me, I have Brandon Sally and Charlene Cooper. If you have any questions throughout this PD, you are welcome to drop them into the chat. We'll be monitoring that, or you can interrupt as well verbally if you want to come off mute, but at least the chat feature allows us to see something if we're in the middle of presenting something. It is recommended to have dual monitors for this, one so you can follow along with the Zoom meeting itself, and the second when we move on to some of the hands-on activity looking at our metadata and steganography labs in our cybersecurity course. The agenda for this workshop, so we've got a little introduction here. We will investigate some of the more commonly known CTFs, and I do have a link as well. It's called a K-12 cybersecurity competitions one-pager, which is far more than one page. It's got a list of a lot of CTFs that are out there. So we'll take a look at that. Before we jump into the metadata labs and steganography labs, we will talk about some additional tools and techniques that may be common in some CTFs. And I've got a couple examples just real quick that we'll be able to take a look at. Then we'll move into the metadata and steganography labs using the cyber.org range. And finally, talk about the lessons learned, any questions at the end, and a nice survey at the end. The few objectives that we do have this evening are to gain a better understanding of how to teach cybersecurity. That comes along with a lot of these PDs that we have. Investigate what a CTF is, and then explore the metadata and steganography labs. I've thrown a few terms out already. I'm sure most of us, if not all of us, are already aware of what a CTF is, but just in case someone's watching this recording or is in this PD and does not know what a CTF is, that's short for a capture the flag. That's a competition where participants are able to solve challenges that are related to cybersecurity, things like exploiting vulnerabilities, decrypting data, cracking codes. They earn points by capturing the flags. There are also examples of physical challenges, some like grab bag questions that may not have anything to do with cybersecurity, but are designed to allow students from all degrees of cybersecurity knowledge to at least get some points throughout a CTF event. Metadata, that is data that provides information about other data. So it's data about data. It describes various attributes such as context, content, structure, management of data. For example, when we get to the metadata lab itself, we'll have a photograph and we'll dissect that photograph to figure out exactly where that was originally taken. Steganography, that's the practice of hiding a message or information within another medium. So a common example is you'll have like a JPEG or a PNG, and within that you'll embed a little text file that may have some information there. You could also hide other types of things like audio files or whatnot into other files, or a text file into an audio file, things like that. And you use that to try to prevent detection. So you're not just openly sending out text if you're trying to send something secretive. Any questions before we take a look at some of the larger and well-known CTFs that are available for students? No, good there. All right. Now, before we take a look at the other CTFs that are available, I have to advertise ours first, the National Cyber Cup. Once a year, we host this National Cyber Cup. This year's going to be a little bit unique because we're trying to change the date that we host that. Instead of being the end of March, beginning of April, we're wanting to host that at the end of September. So we will have a smaller one this year. So students are still able to get access to the National Cyber Cup, but not at the same scale as in the past. That's just for this academic year before we push it back to September. Also, it kind of avoids final exams or AP exams, things like that, which is really the biggest conflict around the March, April timeline. Other well-known CTF events, we have Pico CTF, which is a 2-week competition. CTF open to anyone. Prizes are available to eligible teams. You have hackthebox.com, which gives individuals, businesses, and universities the tools they need to continuously improve their cybersecurity capabilities. And that's one thing that you'll notice amongst these CTFs. Some are designed for higher level, like universities, and others are focused more towards like middle school space or high school space. We have the US cyberpatriot.org. So Cyber Patriot's a STEM program of the Air and Space Forces Association. It's created to inspire K-12 students towards careers in cybersecurity and other science, technology, engineering, or mathematics disciplines, right? Our STEM disciplines there that we all view as critical to our nation's future. We have the National Cyber League. So NCL aims to prepare the next generation of cybersecurity professionals by providing high school and college students, as well as coaches, an online safe platform of real-world cybersecurity challenges. We have the overthewire.org/war game. So OTW can help you learn and practice security concepts in the form of fun-filled games. So this bit.ly link, if I'm able to, there we go. Charlene has that for me. Let me switch which screen I'm sharing here. So we have, if you do access that bit.ly link, it should redirect us to this one pager here. Again, the name's a little bit misleading because it's far more information than just a single page. But this is a compilation of a lot of different CTFs that are out there for students. If we do ask any questions, any specific details, I really only know extended details about the National Cyber Cup because that's our own at cyber.org. And I knew information about CyberStart, but unfortunately, there are no more. So I can't give you details on that because they don't exist anymore. Do we have any questions before we start looking at some of those tools and techniques? There's a question of will we get a copy of these slides? I'm glad that Charlene's here because that question is, we don't share these specific slide decks, Charlene, or can we share these specific slide decks?
We can. The recording will be available in our self-paced PD course through Canvas. And so you'll be able to access that there.
Now, before we get into the range itself, and what I'm going to do is launch our Kali Linux machine in my classroom. This bit.ly link, what you can do is access a spreadsheet here. And that's a great question. Once I showcase the Excel sheet for some login credentials on the range, I'll show us how we can get access to our curriculum on Canvas. So that bit.ly link will direct you to this Excel sheet. Just go ahead and grab a set of credentials here. At apps.cyber.org, as Charlene just shared, you'll be able to log in using those credentials. Be mindful, the first column is just the nickname. That's not the username. That's actually from that second column there. So the pseudo-random string of characters is your username. And then I've changed all the passwords to just password. And we did have a great question. I always forget how to adjust that because we've got the squiggles there. Brandon, Charlene, how well versed are you with Zoom to be able to remove our squiggles here? I'll let them investigate that while we continue to take a look at where to get access to the curriculum on Canvas. At cyber.org, there is a sign up button near the top. Depending on how enlarged your screen is, it may be more towards top center, it may be more towards the top right. You can click sign up. Provide your contact information. It's always recommended to use your educator's email because it helps us verify that you are in fact a K through 12 educator who has rights to gain access to that curriculum. I do have one idea here. I'm wondering if I stop sharing, if that will temporarily break that squiggle. It's at least gone from my screen. So let's go back to sharing. Sorry about that, everyone. I don't deal with that squiggle enough to remember how to remove that quickly. So again, before we jump into looking at the metadata and the steganography labs, some common techniques that you'll see with some CTFs, there may be hidden flags throughout the HTML of a web page, for example. This is actually the Cyber Madness event that Brandon and I are helping to sponsor with North Dakota Middle School. They just had their prelims. The finals are coming up soon. And on the landing page here, I've hidden a flag. And it's not just the cyber curly brace flag here. It's not the gain access. It's not something that's visible to us. Different techniques may involve things like just highlighting through here because maybe you have some white text on a white background, yellow text on a yellow background, black text on a black background. The type of flag that I've got hidden in here is not like that. If I try to inspect the web page itself, and you may not have seen the inspect element just because of where my table popped up based on how I'm sharing this window, but I did a right click inspect element. I can try to look through different aspects of the code here. I can close out of that. I can try to look at the page source. And right now it just looks like a bunch of HTML. So nothing really sticks out until I see one comment here. I see a second comment here. Cyber curly brace, happy Veterans Day. So within the HTML code, there was a comment in the form of a flag. Now that's the way that we write flags at cyber.org is the cyber curly brace and then the flag itself. Different CTFs will have their flags structured differently. I had mentioned physical challenges as well. So you may have other in-person CTFs where you have things like lock picking or working with tamper-proof tape. When Brandon goes to North Dakota for the Cyber Madness finals, he'll have some of those challenges where students will be tasked to successfully pick a lock or working with that tamper-proof tape, trying to be able to lift that off of a piece of cardboard without leaving any proof that it had been altered at all. The theory is relatively simple. The application, quite complex. Any questions with potentially those types of challenges, other ideas with types of physical challenges? I did only launch our Kali Linux machine. The metadata labs and the steganography labs within our cybersecurity course, which on Canvas, let me showcase which one I am getting this from, is just our course that's currently titled Cybersecurity. It's in the high school space, that 9 through 12. It's not the Intro to Cybersecurity course, which in the near future we will be renaming to Cybersecurity 1. We're also working on a Cybersecurity 2 course, It won't be that course. It's this course that's just titled cybersecurity, which we may rename something different. This is currently written in line with the security plus objectives. If I do a control F to look for metadata, there's this metadata lab that's aligned to 4.9.1 logs, which is under unit 9. And then the steganography lab under unit 4, 1.4.4 obfuscation and steganography. I'll be following along with the steganography lab from there. So if you do already have access to our curriculum on Canvas and you want to download the labs that we'll be working through, it's that metadata lab and it's the steganography lab.
Which one should we download? I mean, should we open up first? The steganography or the metadata?
The first one that we'll work through is the metadata lab.
All right, thanks. Also, real quick, because I actually had my students sign into the cyber range today, and I missed it because I was trying to set up the second screen. So we're able to start a specific machine for them without making them click on launch, or did I?
Yeah, you're able to do that as the teacher. So all of you are logged in as students in my classroom if you grabbed a set of credentials from that bit.ly link. But when you use your classroom, you see this interface as the teacher, and that launch VMs button in the top right allows you to select which machine and then which users to launch. So you could select just an individual user, you could select multiple users, or you could select all users.
Ooh, thank you, because we didn't get that far. I just wanted them to log in and be a part of it, and that was it today. That was just some extra time I had. Thank you.
Let's see. And questions in the chat about those credentials. Let's copy and paste that again. So the bit.ly link, you will use those credentials to log in at apps.cyber.org. And again, the column that says username, so column B, that's actually your username for the login. And then the password was just changed to password. Not cyber secure, but easy for everyone to type. If you did grab a set of credentials to log in at apps.cyber.org, you'd be in my classroom. Your interface would look different because you'd be logged in as a student, but you'd see your Kali Linux launched and you'd have a connect button. So go ahead and click connect. I'll just access the Kali Linux associated with the teacher in this classroom. So we've already talked about what metadata is, right? It was data about data. Different types of metadata, like email questions, could be who sent it and not necessarily, well, not just who, like if Brandon sent me an email, but the IP address where it was sent from, who received it, the time it was sent, the time zone it was sent from, things like that. Mobile metadata can also get you locations, call logs, things like that. With files, you can figure out who created it, when it was created, who altered it, etc. For us, we're going to look at the metadata of a picture that's already on this machine. So to get started, let's open up a terminal in our Kali Linux machine. One way to access that, in the top left of your Kali, there is this black rectangle with a white border. And as I hover over this, and I know it's small, but it does say terminal emulator. So I can click that once. And since I am sharing my screen, I'll zoom in just so it's a little easier if some of us are on smaller screens. We're going to navigate to the directory that has these files. So CD for change directory. I'm a little bit lazy here. So rather than type out the entirety of course files, I just start with a capital C and a lowercase o, and I tab autocomplete that. Capitalization is important in the terminal here. So if you try to lowercase c and a lowercase o, computers they're very dumb and they're very smart. They're smart because repetition is going to do the same thing if it's given the same set of instructions. Very dumb. It doesn't understand that I'm trying to navigate to course files and I typed it with a lowercase c instead of a capital C. It won't correct that for us. So we've got to be careful with that capitalization. And then cybersecurity with a capital C. So again, I type capital C, lowercase y, and then just tab to auto-complete that for me. One step further, there is this metadata -lab. James, so I used a shortcut command to zoom in, which was Shift-Control+. You can use that on your Mac, or you can even click the view button, no, the edit button and click zoom in. The only issue with that is you have to do that multiple times to get zoomed in. Shift-Control+ allows me to do that quickly multiple times. So CD, course files, cybersecurity, metadata -lab. And notice the prompt here has changed because it's reflecting where I am within the file system. Just so we see what's in the metadata -lab, there's this extra images and then glass.jpg. And that glass.jpg file is what we're interested in. We could treat it like we're used to with Windows and Mac, where we do everything through the GUI instead of through the terminal, and we'd open up the File Explorer and navigate to this same directory and double-click the glass.jpg to open up in its own application. But in the terminal, we can do that with this xdg-open and then the name of the file. So glass.jpg. Type enter, and it opens up that specific application viewing this specific glass.jpg file. Some people may already recognize what this is a photo of. And if you recognize what this is a photo of, you may know where this is. But that's our goal, is to see if we can determine, based on the metadata, where this was taken. So we can close out of this application. So just the X in the app there. One of the tools that we can use to view the metadata of an image is called EXIF tool. By default, operating systems don't have EXIF tool installed, but we have already installed EXIF tool on the Kali Linux on the cyber.org range. So we don't have to worry about installing anything here. It's just EXIF tool and then the name of the file. Because I'm zoomed in so much, I don't get to see all of the data nicely organized, but I do see a good amount of information here. So if I scroll back up to the top and just take a look at what it gives me. So first off, it tells me the version of EXIF tool I'm running. Lets me know the file name. That's great, right? I typed the command EXIF tool, I typed the file name, so I know that much. The file size, nowhere had I specifically looked at the file size, so that's some information. File permissions, read, write, execute, access. Lets me know my file type and extension. This tells me that it was an iPhone 7 that took this photo, right? We're already on the iPhone 15, 16, and in recordings in the future, I can lie and say iPhone 20s. So this was taken a while ago. Lets us know it had a 90-degree rotation. So there's some information here, nothing too secretive yet, nothing I shouldn't have. Is EXIF tool in the standard Kali repo? I think it might be, Craig. It's a great question. If you had a clean install of a Kali Linux and you just typed EXIF tool, I believe it would recognize that it's not on your machine and just ask if you wanted to install it so it'd be able to pull it right from the standard Kali repo. So not like it's something complex where you have to go actually find it somewhere else. So more information here. And again, we're trying to figure out exactly where this photo was taken. So if I scroll down, what I'm looking for, I've got a GPS latitude and a GPS longitude. So if I have the latitude and longitude using something like Google Maps, I should be able to piece that together to find exactly where this photo was taken. So we've got a couple ways that we can do this. We've got to be really careful because if we're using Google Maps, it does not like DEG. It understands the minutes and the seconds, but it really wants the degree symbol. So I can do something a little more complicated, like Googling the degree symbol to copy and paste. I can see if maybe just deleting DEG kind of helps us out. And because Google, Chrome, Firefox, some of the more advanced web applications are a little more resource hogs on the range itself, rather than open up Firefox within Kali Linux, I'm going to open another tab here. You can do this within your range. You can open up Firefox if you wanted to, or you can open up a tab and go to maps.google.com. And then copying and pasting in and out of the range, instead of trying to get that individually from the latitude and longitude, I've got this GPS position a few lines down. Be very careful. We may be so used to Control-C, Control-V for copy paste. It doesn't behave the same way within the terminal. Control-C actually kills a process instead of copying. But if I do highlight, right click, and copy selection, that does copy that to the clipboard for me. Functionality of the range itself, we can copy and paste in and out of the range using the clipboard, but we do have to pull that open with a Shift Control Alt. So Shift Control Alt, and on a Mac, it's like the same button combination, but it's like Shift Command Alt or Shift Control Command. It's funny, I don't remember what that is. My laptop is a Mac, and I just do it out of habit, but it's that same 3-button combination in the bottom left of your keyboard. That's a good question. If I could just grep that. The only issue is that degrees were copying and pasting, and I could just manually write it over. But the important thing is that I have what this longitude and latitude is from ExifTool, regardless of how I got it from ExifTool. So in the clipboard, here I will Control-C because I need to save that to my computer's clipboard. So this clipboard that was pulled up was the ranges clipboard. I'm Control-C'ing to save that to my computer's clipboard. Over in Google Maps, I can paste that in. And let's see what happens if we hit enter. It doesn't make sense. Like I said, it doesn't quite understand the DEG as in degree itself. If someone happens to know the keyboard shortcut for degrees with whatever the alt and then combination would be, that's awesome. But let's see if Google understands this if we just backspace out the degrees itself. So we still have the single tick for minute, the double tick for seconds. We just don't have a degree symbol. Google kind of corrects that for us. Oh, that's nice, Brandon. So Brandon thinks he's got the degree command. Yeah, the Alt 0176. Debbie confirms that. Just deleting the DEG from that and then hitting enter, Google will automatically add the degrees. So at 48 degrees, 51 minutes, 19.4 seconds north, and then 2 degrees, 20 minutes, 42.2 seconds east. It's got a pin drop here. St. Chappelle, there we go. So we could scroll way in if we wanted, and this is always me forgetting how to use Google Maps here. Not like that. Can I get a... No. Layers, there we go. So it was a photo taken within that, one of the beautiful imageries from the stained glass there. And yeah, I could have done that. Michael was gracious enough to actually share the copy and paste in there for us with the degrees themselves. And again, you didn't have to do this within your web browsers, Google Maps. I just think it's a little bit easier to use my web browser than try to do that in the range. I will showcase that in the range, we can still get this to work. So if we still see the clipboard, it's that same button combination, Shift Control Alt to hide the clipboard. Click the Firefox symbol. Don't double click it. It's just a single click. And it takes a while. The worst is really trying to get Google Chrome on the Windows 7 virtual machine. That one really pushes the virtual machine to its limit. Firefox here runs pretty well once it gets launched, but takes a while to open up. And what I'll do, I'm going to copy Michael's latitude and longitude with the degree symbol. I'm going to open up my clipboard here to paste that in with an actual degree. Close my clipboard. Go to Google Maps. I said a lot and didn't give us much time to see that together, but this is more so me just showcasing that we can do this within the range itself. Pasted that in. And the same thing navigates me there. So I was able to do all of that within the range itself. You don't have to go outside of the range. So if you're doing this in your classroom and your school's IT happens to block Google Maps, the entirety of Google for whatever reason, you can still access that within the range itself. Can anyone think of why it might be dangerous that images could have this type of metadata? Robbery, stalkers. Yeah, Josh. Instagram, there are some case studies, and it's not meaning to point out one specific application or business. They didn't used to scrub the metadata. And so you'd have stalkers who would be following people on Instagram and figure out exactly where they were. Yeah, doxing is another one. You know, you have your influencers like YouTubers or TikTokers or people on Twitter, or I guess it's X now, and you'd be able to figure out where those people lived. You'd be able to follow them. You'd be able to know if they took a photo and it was a live photo and they're in Paris, France, and you know that they're supposed to be home in New York City, New York. They're not home. I could break in and try to steal something. Yeah. So they've learned from their mistakes and they scrub that metadata so that we as users don't have to do that ourselves. Now, there are ways on like an iPhone, I'm pretty sure that Androids can do this as well, where you can actually just turn off the fact that it can provide the location there. So you turn that off and it doesn't even include that information within the metadata of the image itself. Oh. Do we have any questions regarding metadata before we take a look at steganography? I will mention that there is a second metadata lab in that cybersecurity course, and that one utilizes a tool called Juice Shot, which is an intentionally vulnerable web application. It's the same type of idea where you're looking at an image, and if you can figure out where that image is taken, that helps you answer a security question so that you can reset the password for one of the users and log in as that user. So if you happen to download the other metadata lab and we're following along and trying to figure out where did Jonathan get this from? This command isn't the command from my lab. That's because there are two metadata labs. Let's close out of everything that we have open so we can kind of start clean as if we hadn't done another lab. That way steganography starts from scratch. We're all starting at the same location instead of trying to get people from different locations all back to the start. So what was steganography? It was a type of obfuscation where the actual message does not attract attention, right? So we could have a message that's embedded in an image. We could have something like TCP packets that have messages embedded inside of them. That's another really common type of CTF challenge you may see is you've got a really large collection of packages, of packets, and hidden throughout there of the thousands of lines, there's a little line there that's got a cyber curly brace, similar to how the HTML from the web page from Cyber Madness had just one little line there that had a flag. Other examples, watermarks that are actually invisible to the eye on paper would be an example of steganography. We're going to start like we're treating this like it's a Windows. So instead of doing everything through the terminal, we're going to click the folder icon here. So it's not the dragon looking icon. It's not the minimize all windows. I think that's supposed to be representative of the desktop. It's the third option there, the folder. How do we spell that? That's a great question. So steganography, and Brandon beat me to it. Thank you, Brandon. So with the folder, I'm going to navigate to course files, cybersecurity. We do see that metadata lab that we just did, but we're interested in the steganography lab. And then open folder. So we can see the similarities when we were using the terminal with metadata, how we were changing directory from course files into cybersecurity into metadata. Here from the essentially file explorer, we're going to course files, cybersecurity, steganography lab, and clicking to open that folder. Now this is not zoomed in very well, so I'm going to try to use a feature of the range where I can zoom in a bit. And notice I have 8 images here. From their preview, looks like I've got a photo of a giraffe titled Giraffe Tongue. Looks like some fruit, a sleeping koala, and a panda hanging. How did I zoom in? I did do that very fast, Jeremy. Yes. With that same Shift Control Alt, it's not just a clipboard. If I scroll to the bottom of that, the display, I have the ability to adjust how far I'm zoomed in or zoomed out. The only negative with zooming in is obviously it zooms in a portion of the desktop. So I have to scroll around if I want to be able to see the rest of that screen. And sometimes I don't even have those scrolling bars to adjust. On my desktop, I do. On my laptop, I don't. So presenting, it works well for me because I can still scroll, but it's not always the same. Now, I will tell you that 3 of these images have hidden messages. So let's take a look at these individually. Again, treating it like it's Windows. If I double click one of these, it opens up the application for viewing images. And the nice thing is that because of the location in the file system, the other photos are in that same folder. They actually all show along the side for me, so I don't have to constantly close out of the application to view the other images. But I do have this giraffe here, and looking at it visibly, I don't see anything that looks distorted, looks like there's a message anywhere. I could click the next image there, or I could just use the scroll on my mouse to adjust. So apparently my mouse is being very sensitive. So I'll just click the strawberry there. It looks like it's a photo of a strawberry with a white background, a little bit of a shadow. Nothing suspicious looking. That doesn't mean there isn't anything suspicious. And since I am zoomed in, let me zoom out just a little bit to verify there's nothing around the border. Looks normal in terms of a JPG or a PNG. Bananas, same thing. Got 6 yellow bananas, a little bit of a shadow, a white background. Nothing looks out of the ordinary there. Grapes, raspberries, cherries, a comfortable looking koala, and a comfortable looking panda. And this is the whole purpose of steganography. Like I said, 3 of these images have something hidden, but just visually inspecting it, I don't see anything. One thing that has to be kept in mind when we're using steganographic tools, the file that we're using to hide the hidden file needs to be significantly larger in comparison, because think about the analogy I like to make is if I have a cup of water and I'm dropping some blue food coloring in it, I take 3 drops of blue food coloring and I stir that up. The water has visibly changed. It's 1 cup of water. 3 drops of blue food dye will make a difference. If I take 10 gallons of water, I take those same 3 drops, I mix them all up, I probably don't notice a difference in 10 gallons of water. So you have to make sure that there's a big enough of a difference between the file used to hide the hidden file so that you don't have some weird distortion here. And with the 3 images that have the hidden files, we don't actually see a distortion. So now that we've viewed all of these photos, we can close out of the image viewer application. We can close out of the folder itself. And now we'll go back into the terminal. So let's open a terminal again. I'll do that same thing where I zoom in some. Oops, that was the wrong button combination. We do want to navigate to that same location. So that CD course files, cybersecurity, steganography lab. And that's a little unfair for Brandon typing those commands in the chat because we have the advantage of the tab to autocomplete that for us. He has to type everything individually there. I'm going to tell you that one of those images that had something hidden in it was that panda_hanging.jpg. I will do a quick ls just so we see the specific names of those files. I wouldn't be using something like exif tool. Instead, the technique I'm going to use here is actually to unzip a JPG, which seems weird. We're used to unzipping zip files, right? Something that's compressed, an archived file. The way that this file was created to hide another file was actually using zip. And we'll kind of work backwards from that to see how that works in a bit. So unzip panda_hanging.jpg. And notice what happens. It actually tells us it's creating this additional directory and folder. And I didn't mean to highlight that the way I did. So this top secret and then top secret.txt. So let's see how that changed the contents in this directory. So let's do ls one more time. Notice I have a top secret now in the directory itself. We haven't discussed the color codedness within the terminal itself. Purple is usually indicative of an image like a JPG or a PNG. Blue lets me know that that's a directory itself. So I can navigate inside the top secret directory. So cd top secret. We can do ls one more time to list the contents of that. And there we see that top secret.txt file. So let's read the contents of that file. We'll use the concatenate command. So just cat top secret.txt. You may be compromised. Meet your handler at headquarters. So obviously, if we were in a spy situation and we knew how we were hiding files within other files, I'd have a directory that's got a bunch of images. Maybe Brandon sends me a text message and says, hey, Panda. That's enough code for me to know that whatever I just received, I'm looking at the Panda image. I unzip that. I see this file. I may be compromised. He's shared that secret message with me. So let's take a step back into the steganography lab directory there. So that's a cd space and a dot dot. We're going to see how we can use zip to hide a file inside of another file. So let's create a document called secret message, and we know it'll be secret because we'll spell it with a K instead of C. So nano secret message.txt. It opens this nano editor for us, and we can type anything that we want. So since we're talking about CTFs, keep it short and simple. CTFs are fun. I want to exit out of this file. And because I've made changes to this file, I have an asterisk here. When I go to close, it will ask if I want to save. The caret here is actually the control button. So this caret X to exit is control X. It asks if I want to save the changes that were made. I do because I want to include the CTFs are fun. So Y for yes. And this is asking if I want to rename the file. I don't want to rename the file, so I'm just hitting enter. So let's think about how that worked when we unzipped that. We unzipped it, there was a directory, and then in the directory was the file itself. We've made the file, we need to make a directory. So let's make directory, mkdir. We'll do the same kind of format there. We'll spell the directory the same as the name of the file. It just doesn't have the .txt appended to it. So make directory secret message. And we'll move the secret message .txt file into the secret message directory. So we've moved secret message.txt into the secret message directory. Now we need to zip this. We could look at the manual for the zip command, see all the different options, but I'll just let us know we need to use the recursive option for this because we have a file embedded in a folder. Secret message.zip, because that's what I want to name the file itself. And then the secret message directory. So zip a -r, secret message.zip, secret message. We've done a lot with an ls just to see everything that's going on here. We still see all of the original images. We see that top secret directory. We see the secret message directory that we just created, and then the zip that we just made. So let's remove that original secret message directory. And we need to use the options R and F. Since it's not an empty directory, we need to recursively go in, and F just kind of forces it. We're not being prompted for anything. So RM secret message -RF. One more ls just to verify that we've removed that secret message directory. And so the only thing that we have is the zip file itself. So let's think back to what we did. We unzipped the one file. And so it kind of separated the JPEG from the folder. We've zipped this folder. We need to combine this zip with an image itself. The image 1.jpg, that was the strawberry. So what we can do is combine the files using the cat command. So image 1.jpg and then secret message.zip. And we'll rename, I shouldn't say rename, we're creating a file that has a new file in it. We'll name that berry.jpg. So we're combining that zip file essentially into, but it's with the JPG, and we're naming that new file berry.jpg. I'll remove that zip file with an rm secret message.zip. And one more ls there, just to verify, we no longer see anything that alludes to that secret message directory, file, or zip. We do see the berry.jpg. So rather than go through the process of getting to this through the file explorer, I'll just use that xdg-open berry.jpg. And again, looking at this file, I can compare these two. I'm clicking back and forth between berry.jpg and image1.jpg, and I don't visually see a difference. We could compare file sizes, and you'll see when you compare the file sizes that there's a slight difference because of that extra zip file that's in there. But that's one way to use steganography to hide a file, a little text file within a JPG. This was a we do. I'm going to put this on you. How would we extract that zip from that berry.jpg? Unzip, unzip, unzip berry.jpg. Yes, unzip berry.jpg. We see that same thing where it's created that secret message directory and it's extracted secret message / secret message.txt. And we can use that cat command again to display the contents of that txt file. So cat secret message / secret message.txt. And we see the CTFs are fun. Now, if you just tried to do that without unzipping that berry.jpg, you wouldn't get anything because the file hadn't been extracted from berry.jpg. So make sure you run the unzip berry.jpg first, and then you can view the contents of that file with the cat command. That's a great question, Craig. I can't remember if using different tools like EXIF tool or something else lets me know that there's something essentially special with that. With some CTFs, there may be a little bit of a hint or riddle within the challenge itself that lets you know maybe zip is kind of the key. I made a challenge in one of the previous NCCs, and the photo was a zipper. And that was supposed to be enough of a hint to let them think, maybe try the unzip command. But that doesn't mean that that's the only way to solve a steganography challenge. I've seen some students use some tools that I've never used before to find the flags. And I'll, do some shoulder surfing if it's an in-person event, and I'll see what they're doing. I'm like, I don't know what that application is. That's the flag. So it doesn't have to be zip. It's just that zip is a possibility. How do they know that it was zip that created it? They might not. And like I said, they were able to solve it without even using zip. How much do people worry about teaching these tools to teenagers? So that's the thing with this, right? We want to teach our students to be good stewards, to be on the right side, not the wrong side, not to do things maliciously. Yeah, a code that's signed by parents and students. What we have, oh, what's the name of that file? I'm still here. Let's see. Our acceptable use policy. And part of the teaching, right, which is the difficult part for you all, is to stress the importance of being good actors and not malicious actors. There's only so much we can do, right? We don't go so in depth with these malicious labs that students can then immediately go out and implement this in the real world. Part of why we use a Windows 7 machine is so they can't just go out and do that. But that's not saying that students wouldn't take it a step further and use tools to their advantage at home, like Google and YouTube, and pay $40 for Worm GPT to help them figure out how to attack modern machines like Windows 10, Windows 11. But we give ourselves that extra layer of protection by teaching the ideas behind things without showing them exactly how to set up everything. We can discuss the social engineering aspects of things like a credential harvesting attack without actually doing all of those social engineering aspects, like researching a person, constructing an email and sending it out, things like that. So we give ourselves that extra barrier there to talk about how it can be done, but discuss why we shouldn't be doing things maliciously. Now, the steganography lab itself is not just about using zip. We also talk about a tool called steghide. I think with one of the meta packages, when you're installing Kali, if you use the everything package, steghide is included with that. I may be wrong. If you use any of the other meta packages, steghide does not come installed. And like EXIF tool, we'd have to manually install that. The cyber.org range, we have included steghide, so we don't have to worry about that. I can post the name of the tool. I sure can. And we'll be typing the command steg hide as well. So we'll see that within the range itself. So I'm going to let us know that the second file that had something hidden in it is that giraffe tongue file. So steg hide extract options S and F, and then giraffe tongue.jpg. We could again look at the manual for the steg hide command. We could see what S and F stand for and extract and all of this, but rather than go too far in terms of what steg hide actually is, we're just looking at the idea of steganography here. It's asking for a passphrase. Giraffes are very tall. The password is very tall in one word. No capitalization, just all lowercase, very tall. A little bit of protection. That's not flashing. The cursor's not going to move when you enter very tall. But if you did spell that out correctly, you'll see this wrote extracted data to hidden message.txt. If you mistype something, it would give you an error, and you can just rerun the steg hide extract command and then type out very tall. Nowhere did we allude to what that password was, right? We directly give you this password in the PowerPoint for the lab. In terms of CTFs, right, you may have something that maybe it's part of a sequential challenge where something in the first challenge lets you know what the password was. Maybe there's something hidden. It's a riddle. It's disguised. One thing that I'll sometimes do with encryption challenges, the key is secure. I'm directly telling you the key is secure, right? Watt is the unit of power. Who's on first? We're directly telling you what it is, but they think that the key is a secure password, like not password 123, but something much more complex. No, it was literally just secure. This was just very tall. It's directly given to you. So cat hidden message, just to see the contents of that file. This one's nice enough to let us know that the password for koala _ sleeping.jpg is eucalyptus in SpongeBob font. I don't know why it's called SpongeBob font for the alternating uppercase and lowercase, but that's what it's called. So this is kind of a twofer. It's letting me know that koala sleeping is that third file that has a hidden message in it, and it's telling me what the password actually is. So we can use that same command, the steg hide extract -sf on koala _ sleeping.jpg. I'll let you all enter the password, and if anyone gets it first, you're welcome to share what those contents of that file are in the chat. Why do we never see elephants hiding in trees? Debbie, it's because they're so good at it. Patricia's got it. There we go. Now I'm going to make a typo here just so we would see the error that we'd get. Could not extract any data with that passphrase. So if I re-entered that command there, entered the passphrase correctly, I'd get a file, or I'd get a file, and then I could cat the command or cat the file. Why do you never see elephants hiding in trees? Okay, so let's think what we did with the unzip, right? We used unzip, then we worked backwards to actually zip and combine a JPG with a zip file. Let's use steg hide to actually embed a file, right? We've extracted something, so here we want to embed a file. We'll use Nano again to create another text file here. We can title this message to hide.txt. I'm running out of creativity. Yes, that's what this is. I'm running out of creativity. So once you've included your secret message that you want in message to hide.txt, Control X, Y, and enter. The command to embed this message inside of another file is still steghide, that it's embed instead of extract. Our options for this will be EF, and then the name of the file that we're trying to hide, and then a -CF, so option C and F, and the name of the file we want to do the hiding with. So we can choose image3.jpg. It will ask for a passphrase. Let's keep it simple. That way, when it asks us to confirm the passphrase, we don't have a mistype. And then when we actually try to extract that, we've got an easy password to remember. So I'm just going to make it password. Password. I'll do an ls here just to see all this stuff that we have. We'll remove the old message so there's no evidence that it was ever there. So remove rm message to hide.txt. Another ls to verify that it's gone. And I'll put this back on you all again. What would be the command to use steghide to extract the hidden message from image3.jpg? Because here's where I put the pressure on you. You all have been great with working through all these ones. So this one was not an unzip. This one was a steghide. We used steghide to embed the file, so we'll use steghide to extract it. Yes, steghide extract -sf image3.jpg. Steghide extract -sf image3.jpg. What you could do, you could try to unzip and see how that behaves. So before I even run this command, let me try to unzip image3 just to see the behavior. So notice it tells me the computer is essentially saying it can't unzip this because it doesn't recognize it as something that had zip anywhere. But if instead I use steghide extract option SF image3.jpg, it prompts me for the password itself, which kept it simple as password. And it's extracted that data, the message to hide.txt, which we can view the contents of that with cat message to hide.txt and see that I'm running out of creativity. So again, it's important to know those are not the only two ways to use steganography. Those are not the only two tools. There are many out there. I've seen some that are even just built into a web browser. You can just drop a file. It'll scan that file and see if it recognizes that there's something else hidden within it. So there are multiple ways to try to attack something if you think that it is steganography, whether it's directly told to students that it's under the steganography category, or maybe some wording of the challenge alludes to the fact that there's a file hidden within a file. But that's what I typically start with, is unzip. I don't even check the file itself to see if it even makes sense, because the terminal does it for me. If it gives me that response that it didn't make sense to unzip it, I know that didn't work. StegHide, the problem is it may prompt for a password. If I recall StegHide correctly, if when it was asking for a password when we were creating or when we were embedding the file, if we just hit enter, and didn't actually enter a password, I believe that's the way you go around it without requesting a password. So StegHide extract would have just extracted that file without a password. It may have needed a different option instead. I can't remember exactly the way to go around that without a passphrase. So, do you have any other questions before we start to wrap things up for our professional development workshop?
Yeah, real quick. I'm sure there are settings in here that I can find because I don't want to take up your time for this. I got a kid in one of my classes and I need to provide everything for her in much larger font because of her eyesight. So if I dig around in these virtual machines, I can find a way to make everything bigger, right? Just like on a regular computer.
Yeah, so there's that trick within the terminal itself where it was either the edit zoom in a few times, but then that's difficult because edit itself is small.
Yeah, that's what I was.
Yeah, I like the shift control plus.
Okay.
Really lets me zoom in. If it's an application that isn't allowing for a zoom in feature, you still have that shift control alt and you can manually zoom into a portion of the screen itself. We are having people work on trying to make this accessible for the blind and visually impaired. I don't want to give a timeline for that, but we are having people work on that so that we don't have to have students that struggle with the visual portion of it. But for the time being, that's my recommendation.
All right, thank you.
So, let's see. Okay, that was good for, I don't know if Debbie had just attempted that and confirmed or knew that. So it looks like if you just hit enter, it's not that it won't prompt for a password. It's just that when it prompts for a password, hit enter because there is no password. So there may be one where you'd have to change or include a different option to just bypass the password itself. Debbie just tried it. Great. Is there a list of keyboard shortcuts I could post in my room? Ooh, for the range itself, Jeremy, I don't have a list of keyboard shortcuts in terms of, oh boy, things like the terminal, because that's not actually with the range, that's with Kali Linux. I don't have something. I'm going to fall back to Brandon and put him on the spot. Do you happen to have anything that might fit that, Brandon?
No, the best I can do is shortcuts and InDesign. So
Yeah, we don't have a list of shortcuts here. But again, some of those shortcuts were for the range, right? The shift control alt. Some of those shortcuts were for the terminal within Linux itself, which is not the range. So like the shift control plus, that's actually terminal. Doesn't matter if it's in the cyber range, if it's a host machine that's just running Linux. So some of those range specific, some of those not range specific. So let's give a quick review of our objectives. Scale of 1 to 5 here in the chat. How much of one being not at all, 5 being off the charts. Have we gained a better understanding of how to teach cybersecurity? Because we've taken a look at 2 hands-on labs from our cybersecurity course, understood kind of talking about, what do you do with students? Because are we teaching them how to be bad actors? And I'm already asking a question that you'll kind of get asked from the survey. So I was just keeping a user engagement high here. So you got that. Investigate what a CTF is, right? So we looked at some different capture the flags. I've mentioned the National Cyber Cup, the one that cyber.org sponsors. That one pager is a good one. So let's share the one pager again here for your reference. And then we explored how metadata and steganography work, specifically looking at part 1 of the 2-part metadata labs and then the steganography itself. Recall, we also discussed the possibility of physical challenges like lock picking or trying to remove tamper-proof tape from cardboard. I showed the HTML challenge where we had a comment hidden within HTML. So there's a variety of challenges. I mentioned encryption as well. You can see different types of encryptions and cryptography and ciphers, things with packets. CTFs really encompass a broad range of topics. Do I have a list of other tools that might be used to look through metadata and extract things? So I don't have a list there, Patricia. Actually, what I would do using tools like ChatGPT to my advantage, I could ask a question like, hey, I wouldn't say hey to ChatGPT. I'd just say, what tools could I use to try to extract information that's hidden using steganography? And it might just respond with things like unzip and stake hide. It may have some different tools. It won't go so far as to show us how to do malicious content. That's why you have to pay for Worm GPT. Chat GPT is trying to have kind of a code of ethics so we don't do things maliciously, but that doesn't mean that it couldn't tell us what tools are available. Like that. So there's that. So to wrap things up, my name is Jonathan Bartles again. We've got my email here, jonathan.bartles@cyber.org, curriculum development specialist.